Hi everyone, it's Ekant here, and we're here with EkantTakePhotos.com and another episode from the beautiful city of Auckland, New Zealand. So earlier we looked at taking photos of Rangitoto Island at sunrise, and it is at the other end of the day now, about 11:30 at night, and we are taking some cityscape photos. So one of the things I love about Auckland Skyline is not only have we got a whole bunch of different shapes, we've got the sky tower right in the middle, that big hypodermic needle sort of shape there that's lit up with red tonight. It changes color depending on the whim of the organization, but we also have the harbour right in front, and that harbour is going to give us some lovely reflections with those lights shining off them. Now when you want to try and get some reflections off a harbour like this, you can get right down to the water's edge, but the water does act kind of like a mirror does, and so the more of an angle we have with the water, the better the reflections are going to be. So I've tried to come as high as I can. I'm in Devonport at the moment, this beautiful naval historical area up on the north shore of Auckland, and I've come to the top of Mount Victoria. And at the top of Mount Victoria, I think this is the highest point on the north shore, we can get this clear, uninterrupted view of the cityscape with the skyline there and hopefully some reflections. So I'm going to take a couple of different options to taking the shots tonight. I'm going to start with the basic single shot, try and get a composition that's nice and sharp, and get both the city and the water there and see how it turns out. Now with a cityscape, I'm going to purposely underexpose the shot a little bit. Those highlights are going to blow out a lot of the colors. So if I go and give it a +1 exposure or something like that, like you might hear from some blogs, to overexpose shots and then bring the highlights down, you do that and we're going to lose a lot of information, especially from some of those highlights, the sort of details there that are going to make this shot interesting. So the way I've set up this first shot is I'm going to go with an f5.6, so it's going to give us plenty of detail. It's going to remove a lot of that chromatic aberration that might come if I was running at an f1.8 or as fast as I can with this lens. And I'm going to go with a 5-second exposure. I've got my tripod here, so hopefully it's nice and steady. There's not too much wind out here, so we're not going to buff it around too much. I'm going with an ISO 200 as well. Again, you know, this camera can handle much higher ISOs, but I want to get a nice, crisp, clean shot. I've put it again at a 2-second timer for the shutter, so that when I press the shutter, there's not going to be any shake from my hand, so I can press the shutter, walk away, and it's going to take that 5-second exposure. So you can see with this shot, we've got 5-second exposure again. We have got an f5, so very similar to the last one, ISO 200 again, but we've combined 256 shots all into one. And when we do that, not only do we still get a crisp look at the main buildings, that's the sort of key area of interest, they're not too overexposed still, but also we've got a much smoother foreground. That water has really cleaned up a little bit. We don't have as much muddiness there that came from the different colored water, different textures in the water. Now those stars also give us a little bit of an interesting star streaks. I'm still not sure whether I like them or not. They are pretty cool, but at the same time they might take away some of the interest from the buildings. If I had time and if I had the patience, I would probably stay up here for a couple of hours taking these sorts of shots, combine all those together, and then get big star streaks across the sky. It might even be a nice shot to do when there's far less light pollution from the moon and get some more definition there. But for now, I think it's working okay. Now remember, if you want to, you can always take a long exposure of the water to get that smooth reflection thing, and then blend that with a background which is 1 or 2 shots to get the sharp stars, if that's the look you're going for. Again, I'm not a big fan of blending photos like that, but sometimes you need to do that to get the artistic impression you want. So a nice quick episode tonight looking at cityscapes and skylines, especially when you've got a bit of water in front to give us some interesting reflections. So the sort of things that we've learned tonight, not only to try and get as high as possible so we can use the water as a bit of a mirror, get that angle of reflection much sharper so we can get more reflections there, but also we want to try and underexpose the shots a little bit. You overexpose the shots, you might get some cool colors coming through, but those highlights are going to blow out any sort of detail in the darker shades and shapes that the building's producing. We want to have both of those there. So by underexposing it, we're going to get a lot more detail there. And then finally using the Smooth Reflections app to try and smooth out the water, especially when you've got water that's quite fast flowing and different shapes and colors like we do in Auckland Harbour. So hopefully you've enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe and make sure you ask me any questions you have. I'll do my best to answer it. All right, time to get to bed. Been a long day. Thanks again.